New Orleans Saints at the Dallas Cowboys. Matchup that matters here, Carmen. What do you got?
Yeah, I've got the Cowboys corners going against Saints pass catchers because it was very interesting. And again, probably a symptom of going against the Carolina defense. But Derek Carr completed passes to 8 different receivers, and he only attempted 23 passes. So he's spreading the ball out like no one you wouldn't believe. And that's really hard to contend with as a defense when you really, truly don't know where the ball is going. It's why the Packers were so incredibly efficient and improved so well last year, because there's only so many guys you can defend. That being said, I think this Cowboys cornerback room especially is going a little bit underrated. And I talked last week, I think my hipster little pick for the plus factor was Kalen Carson.
Yeah,
and
it was.
Sure enough, 45 snaps, he had 9 targets, allowed 5 catches for just 44 yards and 1 touchdown. But that is kind of to be expected a little bit. And I do think that between him and Jordan Lewis, that you're going to see a battle there between the Saints and the Dallas Cowboys, and they're not going to give up much. So you got Trevon Diggs. Obviously, he had 55 snaps last week, 9 targets, 6 catches allowed for 23 yards, and he had an interception.
Yeah.
So,
oh wow, shocker! Trevon Diggs had an interception.
Shocker, Trevon Diggs has an interception. So it's not only is it underrated, it's a deep unit. Again, shout out to Dave Safaro because he gave me all of the stats of every single corner that played for the Dallas Cowboys last week. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but it's safe to say that this unit is underrated, and it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be effective for the Saints against them, if anyone.
I think that a lot of people looked at last week with the Saints and they said, well, how 47 points total. Chris Olave has 2 catches on 2 targets for 11 yards. You mentioned how they were able to sort of share the wealth. Can the Cowboys cover that sort of depth at the wide receiver position for the Saints if they continue to play well? Obviously, I think that's going to be a very interesting factor. I'm looking at the Saints offensive line versus the Cowboys defensive line. No shock that the Cowboys defensive line played well as well. Led the NFL with 37 pressures in week 1. Micah Parsons alone had 11, which is awesome. And I know that the reason why this is kind of a matchup for me is the Cowboys defensive line playing well is not a shock.
No.
How well the Saints offensive line played is a shock when you look at how few pressures they had. They allowed the fewest pressures, just 2 in pass protection as a total team. But on the flip side, you go, okay, is that the Saints being better than we thought going into the year? Or is it, once again, they just went up against Carolina Panthers? Because the Panthers last week, 10.7 pass rush win percentage, which was the lowest of any team in week 1. So which one was it? That's why the matchup that matters is with the Saints offensive line. And specifically, if we go into my plus factor here, the player that I'm watching is Trevor Penning, their right tackle, because Penning had the best single game passing grade of his career over the last 2 years. He was a rookie last year, so I know it's not a huge sample size, but 76.8 pass blocking grade last week against Carolina. That's the best he's ever had in a single game. Now, you get to go up against Micah Parsons a lot. So did you truly improve, or did you just happen to go up against one of the worst defensive lines in the NFL? It might be a baptism by fire here with the with the Cowboys facing the Saints offensive line, but I am very intrigued to see because like Talise Fuanga played well as well, like Eric McCoy played well. The whole unit for the Saints played really well. What's it like now going up against one of the best defensive lines in football? So Penning is my plus factor, and the Saints offensive line versus the defensive line is my matchup that matters. Who is your plus factor in this one?
Yeah, I think we're really going to find out who the Saints are this week, and if we can take what they did against Carolina Panthers seriously. And to me, that starts and ends with Paulson Adebo or Kool-Aid McKinstry going against CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb was 30% of the Cowboys offense last year. That hasn't changed because they don't have a true number 2. I know they have Brandon Cooks, and they're hoping that he kind of returns to form of 2 seasons ago. Well, now 3 seasons, I guess, when the last time he had 1,000-yard season.
Mm-hmm.
But now, you also have CeeDee Lamb running the ball. The Cowboys used him on 3 different rushing attempts out of the backfield, and he got 25 yards last week.
Love it.
Like, not only do you have to contend with CeeDee Lamb on the outside, who there is very few guys better than nabbing those contested catches and creating separation and length and all of those kinds of things. But also, by the way, he's really fast. And he's also behind a really good Cowboys offensive line when he's running. So there's so many different things that they're doing with CeeDee Lamb right now. If we're going off of 1 week, and I don't know how you stop that. But if you can, it's going to come down to these Saints corners, and maybe I mean a little bit of their linebackers if they keep pushing CeeDee Lamb out of the backfield.
Brian Schottenheimer in his bag, basically saying, "Hey, we paid you, and now we're going to use you on the field
a lot
in any way that we possibly can." But hey, I don't think any fan is going to be mad when their best player gets the ball as much as CeeDee Lamb has gotten the ball over the last 2 years for the Dallas Cowboys. So I think that's a really great matchup as well.